disruptive.
America that I fought.
Weird thing to happen. Hello, one and all. Welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. So, I got an interesting story, and it's related to a certain musician that I don't really know offhand. I mean, I've maybe listened to 2 songs of this person, but I don't, that's as much as I know. But I want to show this story because it's fascinating, and it kind of shows what rock stars should be. Musicians and artists, I always thought they were supposed to be the rebels. They were supposed to, challenge the norms of society. That was kind of the point of being an artist. But because the intelligence community, because the establishment that is so co-opted with the evil, nefarious, this culture that has just cultivated us and basically taken over neoliberalism or neoconservatism, the war machine, so on and so forth, has just run afoul on music and movies and television and the arts, and it's just such a disgrace. You look at, for example, with COVID, how they smeared Eric Clapton, one of the greatest rock guitarists in all of rock and roll history, and they demonized him because he was speaking against the vaccines and he was saying about his own side effects. Or you look at Roger Waters and his performances that mention about Ukraine and how he spoke highly about, the Russian-Ukraine conflict, how easily we can end this war. And speaking up for Julian Assange and speaking against the war machine, they smeared him. So here's the story. This is about Bob Dylan. And like I said, I've listened to maybe 2 of his songs, and that's probably about it. Like, I know he's ridiculously famous, and he's definitely influential. I know that, and a lot of people adored this guy. I don't know. I never got around to it. I guess I should listen more to Bob Dylan. But this is an interesting story. And it says how Bob Dylan ran afoul of the FBI. So on November 22nd, a little more than 2 weeks after the Newsweek article of JFK was assassinated in Dallas, on December 13th, Bob Dylan received an award from the Emergency Civil Rights Committee. Things did not go well. Problems arose when Dylan, who has been drinking throughout the ceremony, gave a rambling acceptance speech that reads more as an out-loud, unfiltered internal monologue rather than a thought-for-thought statement of views, let alone the expected thank you at the award ceremony. In part, he said, "So I accept this award on behalf of Philip Lucci, who led the group to Cuba, which all people should go down to Cuba. I don't see why anyone can't go to Cuba. I don't see what's going to hurt by going to any place. I don't see what's going to hurt anyone's eyes to see anything. On the other hand, Philip is a friend of mine who went to Cuba. I'll stand up and get to uncompromising about it, which I have been, to be honest. I just got to admit that the man who shot President Kennedy, Lee Oswald, I don't know exactly what he thought he was doing. But I got to admit honestly that I saw some of myself in him. I don't think it would I don't think it would have gotten that far. But I got to stand up and I say I saw things that he felt in me. Not to go that far and shoot." Before ending his remarks, he scolded the crowd for booing. So the audience booed him for the speech that he gave about this award. Bill of Rights is free speech, and saying he accepted the award on behalf of James Foreman of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and on behalf of the people who went to Cuba. That too was met with boos as well as applause. Dylan's internal thought process aside, in most situations in 1963, his comments on Cuba alone would have been enough to get him in trouble. But given the proximity to the Kennedy assassination, his remarks about Oswald were unequivocally verbatim. As a result, he would have been forced to issue a public apology. Through his apology, consistent with Dylan speaking for himself alone, reads as a further elaboration on his own internal thinking. When I spoke of Lee Oswald, I was speaking of the times, I was not speaking of his deed. If it was his deed, the deed speaks for itself. Apology or not, the speech had repercussions. Among other things, the incident found its way into the FBI's files by the way of his girlfriend, Susie Rotolo. As a report in her file noted, Robert Dylan, self-employed as a folk singer, appeared on December 13, 1963 at the 10th annual Bill of Rights dinner held by the ECLC at the Americana Hotel, New York City. At this dinner, Dylan received the Tom Paine Award given each year by the ECLC to the most foremost fighter for civil liberties. In his acceptance speech, Dylan said that he agreed in part with Lee Harvey Oswald and thought that he understood Oswald but would not gone as far as Oswald did. A more elaborate account of the incident showed up in the national syndicated column of Fulton Lewis Jr., which ridiculed the entire event, but made clear to get across Dylan's remarks. For example, Lewis characterized James Baldwin as honored at the event as a liberal egghead whose books dot the bestsellers list, and Robert Thompson, another attendee, as the top-ranking communist official who convicted of violating the Smith Act. He then delivered his shot at Dylan. The ECRC Tom Paine Award went to folk singer Bob Dylan, who wore dirty chinos and a worn-out shirt. He accepted the award on behalf of all those who went to Cuba because they're young and I'm proud of it. He went on to say that he saw part of Lee Harvey Oswald in myself. What is striking about the column is what it reads as through Lewis were at the dinner, though he never says as much, nor did he cite any source for what is very detailed description of the event. So either he failed to mention his attendance, his byline as him in Washington, the dinner was in New York, or he received a rather detailed report from an unnamed source. So, Bob Dylan said some controversial things at an acceptance dinner, and the FBI tried to target him by making reports about him and didn't actually get to factual claims about this dinner. So, that's pretty interesting. Now, what I'm assuming is this is about the Cuban Missile Crisis and how, the CIA and the intelligence community was demonizing the country of Cuba and kind of the political side of how they were demonizing Cuba and, this kind of communist versus capitalist rhetoric. And Bob Dylan spoke on behalf of this. And the FBI was petrified because the FBI saw this influential folk singer speaking on this at a very spacious event. And it scared them so much that they had to write reports and turn Bob Dylan in. So this is interesting. And considering that most rock stars today and most musicians would not go to the levels that Bob Dylan or Eric Clapton or uh, uh, Roger Waters or any of those individuals would have done. Um, it's just insane that music today is just so completely entrenched, locked in step with the intelligence community apparatus, with the war machine, with the status quo, and you don't get the real people and the real musicians and the real, you know, the real changers of society. So this is amazing. And how they really never explained this until now. This is from Ross Story, and it's just, that's amazing. And again, I don't know much about Bob Dylan. Maybe after reading this, maybe I should know a bit more about Bob Dylan, and I don't know, maybe listen to more of his songs. But again, you think about like popular bands, even like nowadays, like Taylor Swift. Yes, she's popular. She has good music, but would she actually take her credit as an artist and take it to the next level? Would she actually rock the boat and challenge authority, challenge the status quo, challenge the norms of society? Probably not. Probably not. Same with, Ariana Grande, Miley Cyrus, or even rock and roll artists like Bono. Bono, who, U2 had a great lineup of music, but Bono is also in lockstep with the war machine. He praised President Bush. He, went and spoke about Ukraine, and same with Hollywood actors, Ben Stiller and Sean Penn. Sean Penn, who for years used to challenge the status quo, challenge the war machine, and he was supposed to be this great humanitarian. Now all of a sudden is demonizing people that are not lockstep with supporting neo-Nazis in Ukraine. So it just goes to show you where we are, where we were, and where we are now, and just how things have completely changed, and just how co-opted everything is. Like, people don't realize that we're not just regular corrupted. It's not just, one individual that has a corrupted past. It's an entire system. It's an entire orchestration. It's an entire, basically, cabal of individuals that entrench themselves in the deepest corruption, more than we can even imagine. And how the governments align themselves with corporations have completely destroyed any entity that would once actually help people, has now completely destroyed that and dismantled it, as now completely is now a tool to oppress you. Everything from the EPA to the USDA to the FDA to Health Canada, to all these different entities that are supposed to be helping us. They're supposed to be the safety nets protecting us from tyranny of corporations, are now being co-opted by those corporations to oppress us. So, there you go. That's a musician taking his credit as an artist to the next level. And like I said, you don't see that in today's music, and that's just, it's kind of unfortunate. Really kind of unfortunate. Because rock stars are supposed to be the challengers of the status quo. They're supposed to, go against the man. That's what it used to be. That's what it used to be. That was the whole purpose of, like, Woodstock, for example. People growing up to that music that was supposed to go against the man, go against authority. Yeah, we're supposed to be the rebels. Rrr. But now, anyone that's actually being rebellious, actually being a rock star, is targeted and question their music abilities, or being called a racist like Eric Clapton suffered. Because apparently talking about your own symptoms of an experimental drug that was forced upon people makes you somehow a bigot. I don't know how that all is connected, but apparently that's what Rolling Stone and Salon and a bunch of other ridiculous publications posed on one of the greatest rock and roll guitarists of all time. Just unbelievably sad.